All right. So I'm recording the session here. So as I mentioned, my name is Greg Bailey. I'm in Houston, Texas, and I've got Sean Palis is going to join us today and actually go through some of the training and demo. We're going to go through Tempus Resource, one of the Gartner cool vendors, and the agenda that we're going to cover today, and I want you to feel free to ask questions as we go through the sessions, is what we've done is we've got this product called Tempus Resource that Motorola's trialing all over the world, and I'll talk a little bit about what it does. We actually did install some of your base data in the system. I will say that there is some cleanup probably that still needs to be done, mainly because we haven't gone through a full deployment. We just sort of did a quick upload of some data. And we're going to do a little more cleanup tonight, and then I'll make sure that all of you on this call will get login access to Tempus tomorrow, and you will also get links to our YouTube videos as well as our training documentation. Now, what we're really going to try and do while you're going through the session is take a look at it from a couple of different perspectives. One, see if it will enhance some of the existing work that you're currently doing. Our objective is not to add any additional workload to what you're currently doing. As you'll see when Sean gets into the presentation or the demo, you'll see that we can either pull data in from other data sources as well as enter data directly into the system. So, again, if you're currently entering data in Workfront or some other tool like that, or any other system that we're going to be tying into, PDWare, we will pull that data in. Or if you're currently using spreadsheets and things like that, you'll see that it's much easier to enter that into Tempus. The other thing is I would like, as you're going through the product over the next week and a half, if there are certain things that you wish the product did that you're not seeing it does, please go ahead and take a screenshot of that and give me some feedback to my email. And I will send you this PowerPoint too. Because we know that in a company as large as Motorola, there are going to be some enhancements you would like to have, and we're very open to do that. So we have some new releases coming out, but also if there are specific things you like or don't like, let us know because we want to add those in. So with that, as I mentioned, Tempus, what you're going to see is this powerful what-if simulation capability. More than just dashboards, you're able to move things around and see the impact. We're going to be able to pull data in from other data sources, whatever they are. Also, you'll be able to enter data directly into the system. And so what Sean will share with you today is he's going to share with you the fact that we have some data already loaded in your system. He's going to load more tonight. So if you see some data missing, just know it's because it's trial. So he'll show you sort of how data gets into it and what the projects look like and how you add resources. And then he'll also show you how to do the what-if simulation or the models. And the models really are where, and you'll be able to do this on your own. You'll be able to create your own models with your login. And you'll be able to say, here are my projects that I'm looking at. Here are the resources or my resource histogram. And then to be able to move the different projects around on the screen. So for example, I can see this dev spec lab tech. I could maybe say, hey, I want to take a look at, let me find a project that's included. We might need to add some projects that are included in this model here. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like we're missing some projects. Hold on. Yeah, Sean will create a new model that actually has some projects that are included. But the whole idea here is you being able to say, hey, what if this project slips? You drag it, you drop it, and then basically in real time, Tempus will give you the before and after implication of that slippage occurring on this project. So now I can quickly see here's my before and here's my after if it impacted any of the data. That particular project just didn't have any resources loaded on it. So Sean's going to walk through doing this what if simulation, as well as walk through sort of the basic setup, what the data currently looks like. And then with that, I'm going to make Sean the presenter. And feel free to ask questions as we go through the session here today as well. Over to you, Sean.
All right, great. Thanks, Greg. Good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sean Palis. Hey, Greg, can you just quickly confirm you can hear me and see my screen?
Yes, it looks excellent.
All right, great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just briefly talk through some of the interfaces, how data get in, how we manipulate data, and then obviously go through the what-if analysis capabilities, at least at a higher level, maybe skipping some of the minutia. And Greg mentioned, I think, multiple training sessions will follow for both this group and some of the other groups as well. So we took data that were handed to us in Excel, did some manipulation, and imported a large set of those data, mostly things from 2014 going forward. And there's additional details that we can get into in a bit. But you'll see I'm logged into the system as an administrator. The product does have, and I'll just quickly take us behind the scenes a bit into the administrative screens. And you can see the product does have its own role-based security structure. So we can limit who has access to certain projects and what functional elements can be made available. Much like a traditional role-based management structure, there's ties to Active Directory and a variety of authentication mechanisms. The product also supports a wide range of custom attribution. So out of your PDWare or the Excel spreadsheet sent over, there were a large number of project and resource-centric attributes. Tempus supports those. So whether we're synchronizing and pulling data from other systems or you're entering those directly, we can configure a wide range of attributes. If I jump here quickly, you'll see that we have, again, put in a wide range of these, both project and resource-centric, some being selection, some date, some precision number. And we took some liberties in this import, not knowing if things generally are selections or just user-defined. But you'll see a wide range of these fields were synchronized from the Excel spreadsheets. And of course, going forward, we can synchronize from other applications or create new attributes directly inside of the application. And you'll see a wide range of attribute types ranging from selection to number to text to string to resource and so on. So a wide range of resource and project-centric attributes can be configured and or synchronized from elsewhere. Furthermore, the product does support administrative time and calendars. So if you're entering resources directly into the application, you can not only set up a resource's base capacity, but you can also offset that resource's base working availability by way of administrative exceptions, things like maybe sick leave, vacation, PTO. You can also introduce calendars. So based on the facility the end user is working at or where they're domiciled, we can apply various calendars that would offset their base capacity given those maybe regional holidays or facility time off. Okay, so a wide range of administrative functions provided in the application, as well as tools for data synchronization, whether it's Excel, PDWare, Workfront, Workday, and other applications. Okay, so let me head back to our home screen. And where I think I'll start is in the resource management section of the application. So I'm logged in. I'm going to see access or have access to all of the resources that we've imported. And these may be named individuals. They may be generic placeholders. We can set the base capacity of a resource. We can also set the FTE equivalent of a resource, as well as any of the attributes that support your resource search, resource planning, resource replacement, and general resource forecasting needs. So with that said, I'll go ahead and click on Resource Management tile. This is going to return all of the resources to me. And you'll see I've chosen to display a number of the resource attributes like department, org level 1, STLI group, STLI name, and so on. At the very top right corner of the screen, you'll see we have the ability not only to search for resources, but I can also choose the columns to display. And you'll see again a number of intrinsic columns, those that ship with the product, as well as a number of custom attributes pulled over through the synchronization with the data provided. Now you can choose which columns to display. You can also, once you've built a layout here of your liking or to your liking, you can then save these views as your default view or pre-populate a series of unique views to make accessing data easier. So if you want to group by location or by department or maybe by multiple levels to see just the resources in your org, just those in your facility, just those where you're the resource manager of, let's say, all of that is configurable by the end user. We can also introduce a wide range of filters using any of the attributes regardless of data type. We can sort by column headers. You can also choose how you wish to group the data if you wish to do so, which would display these data grouped to level 1 with the counts underneath each of those. Well, if we wish to drill down into a bit more detail here, if we take maybe, let's see, Maha Abbey, and go ahead and click on the resource name, this will take us one level deeper, and you'll see we have access to a range of various attributes and data. First thing you'll see in the top right corner is how the resource was created. So in this case, this resource was created using an Excel importation. If you wish, or again, as we add various integrations here, you would see how the resource is being populated. Is it a manual create? Is it coming from Excel or some other system? Now in this case, we're currently in read-only mode, and I'm probably going to keep it that way just to move through this with a bit of briskness. But you'll see that we have user identity data. So if I wish to drill in here and specify how the user authenticates, in this case we loaded most of these just like generic resources. They don't have logins. We did create 25 or 30 different logins for various Motorola users. Many of these resources, however, are simply resources. We have a required fields section, and this is mostly blank. We did keep the intrinsic is resource manager function enabled, and you can sort of disregard this value that can be changed in bulk. We just set some of these things to default. And then you'll see a wide range of the optional fields. So the company, the core ID, the country, date terminated is blank in this case, department designation, employee subgroup, loan to team, and you'll see a wide range of these attributes have been set up, again, based off of the importation from the external system. Now the nice part is all of these attributes that you've collected over the years and set in the external systems can be used for model generation, for dashboard and report development, and so on. Okay. Now if we continue to scroll down in the screen, you'll see we also have a capacity section. Now the capacity defines the base or net working times for the resource. It also defines how many FTEs does this resource represent, which in most cases is going to represent 1. The benefit of having these data types separated is that if I wish to have maybe one resource represent a team or a group of people, I can specify how many FTEs is this resource comprised of, and what is the base capacity for that team. Now you can modify these values on a month, week, or day-by-day basis. In this case, we're synchronizing from Excel or elsewhere. You can set default hours. You can adjust the net capacity by, again, using either calendars or administrative time buckets to offset the base carrying capacity by way of, again, customizable calendars or customizable admin time groupings. You'll also notice in the bottom of the screen, in this particular resource case, based on the data we've populated, you can see any cross-project commitments. And again, as Greg mentioned, I'm loading more and more data, so I might just have missed this resource during the import. No big deal, all gets updated. But you can see both the planned as well as any actuals that have been entered on all of the projects to which the resource is currently allocated. So again, I have base capacity data that I can manipulate and edit as needed. I have cross-project allocation data to see where else this resource is applied. So lots of information, lots of detail we can set up and maintain underneath each individual resource. And we click back to take us back to our resource management screen. Now the product also supports not only inline editing, but also bulk inline editing. So for example, if we wish to take Maria here and change the department association, I can type these data in. Perhaps we wish to change the organizational level, in which case, again, I can choose this pencil icon to change that org level to a list of available attributes, which again are comprised of those that were part of the importation process. And I can make these changes directly here in line, make the change and select Save. Similarly, if I wish to make changes in bulk, so imagine that you're grouping the data based off of Resource Manager. Maybe you're saying, I want to see all the people that report to me. So we would group by Resource Manager and then maybe filter where the Resource Manager is me. So I'd have a view of only my people. Well, I could then select everybody, and maybe in this case we'll select 2 or 3 or 4. Well, in this case, again, if I wish to change a particular value, I can make this change in bulk after selecting those multiple resources. The idea being get in, get out, move very quickly throughout the application, make edits inline or in bulk without having to go through multiple check-in and check-out processes. So a range of actions here for administering your resource pool. Now if we head back to our home page, the next place I want to take you to is the project management tile. Now this is going to have many of the same features as the resource management screen, meaning we can create our own views, we can group and sort and filter, we can search, we can add various columns, and of course we can create new projects and edit existing. So again, I'll just click on the name of that tile, and this is going to take me to a listing of projects. Now in this case, I'm exposing start date and end date, assembly location, and current MGate. I can also, of course, insert a wide range of various columns here that maybe I wish to expose. Again, many of these were imported using the data that were provided. And I can also, of course, sort of group these, sort them, filter them by the various components. Like we saw in the resource view, not only can I choose the columns, but I can choose how I wish to group the data. Maybe you want to group by location, department, project status, project phase, whatever it may be. We can filter for a wide range of values based on any of the attributes that we've set up. We can also do a search for any of the projects that we're looking for. So very simple to work with getting data. Now when it comes time to drilling into projects and making modifications, again, very simple to do. Maybe I wish to search for a particular project. In this case, let's use your management project, management and support. Now in this case, I'll just click on the name, and this is going to open the project for read-only purposes. And you'll see in this case, this has a very large number of resources assigned. I think maybe several hundred. So maybe this isn't the best example, but in any case, you can see as part of the import, we've captured the amount of hours that we're deploying these resources over this particular project. You'll see this ranging from January 16 to December of 16 with varying of allocation, based on the import files. And not only can I look at allocation in terms of hours, I can also view it in terms of cost if we had a rate applied. I can look at it in terms of FTE, which is really how the data came over, and or also in FTE percentage. Now this will also support not only read-only, but also read-write. So if I wish to input my allocation in terms of hours, FTE, FTE percentage, all of that is feasible. Once you open and check out the file for editing, you can copy and paste, make edits directly, and you can enter these allocations at a generic level, meaning I don't really care about the discrete activities. I just know that Sean or Manny or Tim or Bill, whomever, is going to be working a certain amount of his or her availability or net capacity on this project. At the same time, if you wish to break things out into more detail, perhaps you did want to start at sort of a task level 1, and maybe say that I have design, develop, and test, and just 3 tasks generically. You can allocate percentages, work, cost, or FTE at those levels as well. So while the data set provided and what we've mostly put in place is sort of a generic level allocation, You can go to a much more granular level of detail if you wish. Now I'm going to back up a bit, and you'll notice I'm many of the same features and functions that we had in the resource screen. So obviously you'll see a title, you'll see the ability to take this into an edit mode, you'll see a security group setting where I can determine what an end user can do against the project, the time range of this particular project. You'll also see in the top right how the project was created. In this case, it came from an Excel import. In the future, if you wish to create manually or from Excel or from other systems, we can synchronize from those as well. And then we have both required fields as well as optional fields. And the optional fields, you're going to see these coming over from the import. So you'll see a wide range of those here. Systems, devices, management, project data manager, and many of these fields either were available in the import file or some were blank. So we pull over as best we could, and again the allocations down below. Now in this allocation screen, and I'm going to back out in a minute, we'll create a new one, but you'll see that I can capture not only planned but also planned and actual, as well as view the remaining information. And I can interact with the data in terms of months, weeks, and or days. And again, you've seen a variety of mechanisms for how we work with the data, whether it's cost, FTE, FTE percentage, or even a Gantt view of the data. The system does use a check-in, check-out process, so if I wish to make modifications to this plan, I would check it out to prevent contention for the underlying data, and of course, check it back in when I'm completed. Okay. And again, the back arrow just to take me back to my project list. Now, creating a new project, very simple to achieve. We'd simply click on Create Project here, or from the home page, there's one tile dedicated to very rapidly creating a project. Now, if you're going to create projects directly, our goal is to make this a very simple and fast activity, so there's not a lot of overhead. So let's call this Test Project 99999, just making something up. I'm going to choose the time frame. I think it's going to be from this month until maybe a few months. We'll maybe create something until the end of September. And you'll see it will automatically build a grid, in this case by month, in the lower half of the screen. Now at this point, I can set any of the required fields as well as any of the optional fields. I'm going to leave these as they are for the time being. And now I can enter my resources or my tasks directly into the grid. Now in this particular instance of the product, this is not using some of the more advanced features, it's just a drop-down list of names. This obviously can be updated with IntelliSense and search functionality, and the list goes on and on. We've deployed a more basic interface here. So maybe I need a dev support resource and I need a mechanical multi-specialist, whatever that is. So with this in place, I can now begin to enter the amount of time, let's say, that I intend to use these resources. So if we say this is 100 hours in April, 120 in May, and then from here I can just click and drag and pull this across or pull it down or do both. So the idea being I can very quickly apply my allocations in terms of hours, FTE, FT percentage, or cost. If I wished, I could drill down to a more detailed task level, but in this case I'm going to stay at a very high level. So once I have this in place, I just hit Create, and this will then save the project, okay, and check it back in. So very simple to make these edits.
John, a question.
Sure.
Yes. What if we want to select the mechanical skill set but against a department? Can we do that?
So in this particular instance, we don't have that set up here, but that is something when deployed that can be put in place. So there would be sort of a build team interface where you can search for the resources necessary. For the sake of this particular trial, we don't have that interface in this deployment, but yes, you would absolutely have, there's actually a separate icon that would let us build the associated team to choose what type of resource, what location, department, using any of the attributes that you have in the system to narrow down the set of resources that are applicable to this particular project. So yes, as part of a deployment, that is all achievable.
Okay, that means it's based on all the attributes that you select, am I right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Is it based on the attributes,
It
different
is.
levels of attributes?
Yes, sir. So all of the attributes of the resources would be available. So to give you an idea, I don't have an instance I can just jump to quickly, but I can show you in, for example, the resource management screen. It's going to be very similar to this here, where I can say that give me a resource by a particular company, where it contains a specific value, and then continue adding more filters to say by by department. So you'd be able to build an advanced filter to limit the available resources or find those you wish to assign to your project, and that would then limit that result set. So absolutely, that would be available to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we could spend a lot of time, and I think at a high level, I think this is again an introduction, and there's much more here. But what I think I'll do at this point, being sort of at the halfway mark of the hour, is I'm going to pivot now to some of the what-if analysis functionality of the application. So with our projects and resources in place and our allocation available, the next step in this process, again, as part of your evaluation and really where we are really differentiated from anything else that's out there, is in this modeling capability to do this what-if analysis. And to do that, you would simply click on Go to Tempus right in the center here. And that's going to launch in a separate tab. Okay. Now, I've already set up one particular model, but what I'm going to create an entirely new one for you to see how easy this is to do. What we're doing in this case is creating little virtual realities of our world from which we can do this what-if analysis or what-if forecasting. And to do that, we would just go ahead and click on this little plus symbol. That's going to take me to a screen where I can create a new model. So I'm going to call this Motorola, let's say 2017 forecast. And the nice part is you can make these models private, so maybe only you wish to conduct this scenario analysis. Maybe you want to share it with others, or you want to share it with data. And what that means is that you're in effect creating a project object or a model that you can hand off to say that, I'm going to work on my resources in the US, then I'm going to hand this to a team in Malaysia who's going to work on their resources, and we're kind of going to hand things back and forth to one another. That's what the share with data option would do. Next, I'll choose a date range. Now the range here we're looking at is sort of your decision space. This is the time frame over which you're conducting your forecasting. So you may plan a much longer period of time to include everything that's maybe in the future, but also to give you more flexibility in performing your what-if. Now in this case, I'm going to actually go a little bit back in time to include some earlier projects. So let's go back, whoops. Let me just go back to 2014 so I can include all of your, a large number of projects here. And let me go one up, sorry. There we go. All right, I'll do 2015. And we'll say from 2015, and we're going to look out, we have a few options here, 1, 3, 5, and even up to 10 years. So let's sort of stick with maybe do a 5-year, and you can see there's 351 projects to return. So good number, and this obviously can grow. I know we've got thousands in the system, but many of them are older. So really what we're doing in this case is looking at our forecasts, things that we're looking to do in the future along with what's currently in flight. From here, I have the ability to access any of my resource-related selection fields. So things like primary skill, R location, resource type, skill category. And when I select these, you'll then see a number of those attributes available here. So the point being, end users can conduct analysis off of really any of the various attributes that we've set up in the system. Now my next step is to choose which projects to include. Now you don't have to select everything. You could maybe just select a handful of projects that you wish to manipulate in your what-if model, but you can still include all of the unselected project resource allocation. And that's really critical to understand because perhaps you want to only include proposed projects. You only want to look at things that management is asking to do next year. But you don't want to do that in isolation. Instead, you want to compare what you're forecasting against what you've committed to delivering. And for that, we have a very simple but very powerful checkbox here called Unselected Project Resource Allocation. What that does is it ensures that your models are not presenting false positives. So it allows you to do analysis on your forecasted projects or planned projects, proposed projects, while still incorporating all of the other work that your resources are scheduled to deliver. Okay. Now in this case, I'll just grab everything. And you can also leverage a proposal logic. The project does have the ability to segregate out projects that are in a proposed state. And the use case there is management may ask, we're looking to do these 20 or 30 or 50 new projects next quarter, next year, whatever it is. How can those fit into our portfolio? And Tempus will give you tools as part of your what if to lay out the various points in time that that project could initiate. And it'll give you various options for when you can start that project. And that's incredibly valuable, not only to answer management questions about, when can I perform a currently in-flight project if I needed to move it, but also looking out in the future of all the projects that I'm planning to do, when can I slot them in? So incredible supportive what-if capability. Okay. There is filtering as well. So if I wanted to filter based off of project fields, the most common maybe being by facility, department, location, but then also things like, show me just those that are proposed initiatives, maybe the only 2017 or 2016 initiative. So all that filtering can be done here to maybe say, you know what, I know I have 400 or 500 projects or more, but for the sake of my analysis, I really only care about doing analysis on maybe 50 or 60 or 100 of them. In any case, once that's in place, you would simply click on Save. Now, this persists the model properties, and you can always return to this to either make a comment, edit the properties, look at its notes, change its setup, or even to delete it. But if I go ahead and click on one that I was working with earlier, it looks like this might be locked, so I might have to back out and open the other one. Give it a second. So this is now pulling together hundreds and hundreds of projects, thousands of resources into an analytical session. And what it's doing is giving me all the data and allowing me to play with it without altering my live data. So that's a really important feature of our product, is that a variety of managers, department heads, resource managers can conduct isolated what-if analysis without impacting the day-to-day operational nature of the application. So if I wanted to do this analysis, no one has to know, or no one has to make changes to accommodate what is normally a very intrusive and destructive process. Now, in the model itself, you're going to notice two core panels. So the top panel or window contains a timeline for all of the projects I've included. So there's several hundred projects here, all varying in their timelines. And I can change my display from 5-year down to 3, down to 2, down to 1 year. You could also roll up projects by any of your project attributes. So if you wanted to maybe take an entire product segment or facility and maybe say we're going to delay all of our work on that to another year, I could do that very easily. Or maybe say I'm going to cancel a particular department, sell it off, move resources away. We could do that in bulk as well. Okay. Now the lower half of the screen will contain my resource data. Now this is based on how I set up this particular model, which may not be ideal, and we may not see the best data, but the point being, I have a heat map that'll roll up data from across all of the projects that have been imported into the application. And I think as you saw earlier, if I click on these cells, I can see which projects are driving demand for that role, for that skill, for that department, however you wish to look at the data. And you could also drill down to see, well, who are the constituent members of network support? And in this case, I'm seeing just 2 based on how I've built my model. There's certainly more, but again, you can see that I have, I'm not even going to attempt some of the names. I apologize, but you can see we've got 2 members of this particular grouping based on how I constructed this model. From any of the views, there are filtering options. You can export to Excel or PDF or CSV. You can change your display from month to week to day. You can change how you're looking at the data from work-related to cost-related. And you can also change the heat map itself. So if you didn't like going from green to red, you want to start at red, go to yellow, go to green, then back to yellow, then back to red. All of that is achievable as well. Or if you want to use a wide array of various colors, you can do that also. You can also access views like our cool map. This will show us density of under allocation. So where do I have skills or roles deep in the blue, meaning they're becoming less relevant to the business, or where can I slot in new work? All of these, again, are going to expose some of the features you saw earlier, like our impact assessment, showing me where these resources are being pulled in descending order based on the density of their allocation. You'll see some graphing views. This is going to be a pretty big data set. This may take a second to come back, but you're going to see the base capacity for the various resources along with the allocation. Wherever I breach that allocation, you're going to see those bars go red, whereas if I'm under, they'll stay blue. This also has the feature of providing a delta capability. So this is going to show me before and after. You'll see the 4-bar in gray, the after in blue, or red, depending upon the degree of allocation, with some pop-ups showing us the allocation data. You'll also see a grid view. That grid view is going to include the ability not only to look at work and cost, but also to look at FTE information as well, which some of the other views would not present and really wouldn't make sense. So here I can look at FTE. You could also overlay your heat map on top of these data. So if I wanted to look at my net availability, net surplus, surplus only, deficit only, budgeted allocation, budgeted base capacity, all of those can be displayed here in terms of work cost or FTE, along with some totals and the same types of drill down, drill through that you saw previously. Now if we jump back to the heat map display, and maybe we look at one of our core use cases is, let's look at this, this lab tech support. And this being the closest we have, actually this has projects outside of it. Let's look at maybe this, how about this SR717 software. So in this particular case, this project, maybe we determine is of a lower priority, something that we can impact by changing its timing or canceling. Well, if I click on the name, this is going to take me to that particular project. I don't have to remember the name and sort through it. And our sort of core use case here is, what if I just wish to change this timing? Well, I can click and drag and maybe move this out by, let's say, 6 months. So I'm going to make this about 180 days. And again, we're going to recalculate all of the underlying allocation, base capacity, FTE data, all the various displays. And if there is an impact, we're going to illuminate it in this delta report. So jumping over to our delta view, you can see the before and after by month impacted not only my software test engineer, but process engineer, quality software, team lead, integrator, and some of these other resources. And I can drill down from the role or skill into the individual named resources as well. And again, you see before and after. So you can see a drop off in some of the allocation early, with most likely a bit of a pickup later on where we've moved the allocation into the future. And keep in mind, the product does retain all of these changes as part of your model. So in the top right corner, if I click on this, this undo command here, you're going to see a history that shows me what changes did I make, and I can output this history information to management as part of a report, or to turn this back into the live data to again see what's the net effect across my my portfolio. Okay. Now beyond changing timing, and you can see, yes.
What if after we play around with the scenario, we decided to lock it down and make the change in real time? Can it, if one click, the whole resources will change?
So at the moment, and that's a really good question. So for years we debated whether that was critical, and Greg might want to speak to this a bit, but we've had every customer, believe it or not, tell us to not push the changes back. It is achievable through professional services. The challenge we have is, imagine that you have 10 different global managers editing these data, and all of them agree on their own that their scenario is ideal, is optimal. If they all click apply, how do we handle that? So while it is technically achievable with services, the question becomes, how do you want to handle the implementation? How do you want to handle the change management? How do you want to handle the prioritization of the approvals? So that's why it's not an off-the-shelf, just turn the button on, is because of that feedback from the market.
Yeah, and what we do right now though is we do provide that report. So what the majority of our customers do is through their governance process, they'll hand off these changes to whoever it is that owns that project plan or the resource manager, and then they go in and update their schedules because they like to know that they're updating their work. But the answer is yes, we can have it automatically go back. We just have to sit down with you and define the rules on how that happens.
Excellent. Okay, so beyond changing timing, we also offer the ability to expand or contract projects. So if I wanted to take that same project and maybe compress it by 10, 20, 30%, let's just say 10% in this case, 52 days. Again, we would recalculate the entire data set in memory and then show us the before and after effect of compressing that particular software initiative by 10%. And you'll see in this case some of our allocation numbers ticking up as we compress, and the same would be the case for expanding. So if I wanted to take a project and say that I'm going to do it over, double the length of time, one additional, several percent, I'm moving it in that case. Let's say I want to expand it by maybe 5%, and we want to assume we're going to smooth this out. What is the net effect of expanding that particular project? Again, and this would all render in our history list, in some of our reports below. It looks like this one didn't have an impact on the way that I've constructed my particular model. We also offer the ability to exclude projects from the model as well. So if I wanted to see, well, what's the effect of taking this Astro Tetra support project and just say, what if we cancel it? Or maybe this 3WPS level 5. We can ask the question of what if we exclude this project? So I can simulate, in effect, canceling it, killing it, however you refer to maybe putting projects on hold. I can again see the effect of taking that project out of the portfolio. In this case, it's not impacting the way that I constructed my model, but you can see that we've now put it into a proposed state, and if it did have a bearing on my resource allocation, I would see this light up pretty extensively across the board. You can also simulate from within the tool, linking projects together. So perhaps we want these through 2 3P projects tying one another together. I can link these up. So if we say this drives this 3P simple touch project, this would put my link in place, and then they would drive one another. So as I change the timing of this 3P, you'll notice the linkage here in the far right. This would become sort of a finish to start or a start to start relationship. As I shift one, it's going to pull the other along with it, which again then ties back to our simulation and what if capabilities. And we can also go a higher level. If I wanted to roll these projects up to do the same types of analysis, maybe I want to say let's roll these up by category or by location. Based on how I've set my model, let's see if these are available. Looks like none are. And some of these, again, based on how I have this set up, may not come back as we expect. Yeah, some of these, let's say maybe project size, I don't know. Okay, so I see one is major. I'll go back and tweak this for tomorrow, but in effect, if I wanted to roll this up by department or location, organization, having all those attributes in place already, we would see the net effect and how those roll up together. There's also the ability to get down to a much more detailed level inside of the application. So for example, if I wanted to look at, let's say, individual resources, you'll see their names here, but you could also do this by project and then by resource. So lots of options how we manipulate these this resource data. But I can drill in, and let's say for Mohammed on Astro Engineering Support, I can see the timing of his allocation, and I can see by month, by week, by day. And not only can we simulate looking for other resources, so there's a replace function here to see, well, maybe it's a generic resource, but then Mohammed's assigned and maybe Mohammed is leaving the business, or I want a different resource because Mohammed is so overbooked. I can use this replace resource function to go find alternate replacement resources. And I know that Mohammed is a mechanical technician, I'm guessing. And I can see the time frame over which he is assigned to this activity. Now this would return to me automatically all of Mohammed's peers. So I can see all these other folks. But if I wish to, I could say, you know what, I'm also interested in knowing from my industrial design group or from my this other design group. So I can include different resources, or I could say, you know what, I don't really care about skill at all. I want to do a search by country, by designation, by location, by manager. And I then want to simulate replacing Mohammed with, let's choose someone else. So let's grab one or multiple resources who in this case are not allocated to anything. And I can then apply and reallocate these 332 hours to these two individuals. And I can then, again, see the net effect. So we have the ability to change timing, cancel projects, delay, expand, split, change tasks, roll up portfolio level, and then also drill down to this named resource level to, one, simulate replacing, and you'll see now Mohammed has dropped off of that other project, and even the ability to modify the allocation. So if I don't believe this is 112 hours for April, I could say I think it's more like 150. Again, I can modify these numbers directly in the model. So I can say, if I believe that a resource manager or a project manager is maybe not coming up with the right numbers, I could alter this directly in the model, and you'll see in this case that by changing it, my uptick in my mechanical testers goes from 38 to 40%. So I can see the net effect. Now similarly, if you wanted to do some of this in bulk, the product does support what-if analysis where we can alter our data very easily in mass. So in this case, we have something called a resource efficiency coefficient. And it's saying the data that I'm pulling over from the underlying data set, in this case directly from Tempus or imported from elsewhere, I'm representing as 100%. But I could just say that, you know what, I don't think any of it's accurate. I think people in general are about working at like 90% efficiency. Or I could break this out by my model, saying that my electrical RF people are, about 82%. My management resources are more like 75%. My systems architect actually works better. Maybe they're more efficient by about 105%. So I can offset or adjust the net working capacity of resources in my model, making headcount and workforce assumptions that would take me, hours and hours or weeks to modify in the live data and obviously impact the lives of all of my end users. So you can apply these efficiency coefficients to your resources directly inside of your model in the positive or negative. Okay. So we'll jump back to the modeling screen. Again, you've seen the various layouts here. Now another feature I did want to show is whether it's a proposal or an active project is something called the opportunity map. Now some of this may not illuminate because of the way I've set up this particular model, and this may have to be for a future discussion. Let's see if some of us have the information. Okay, so let's say this business light project. Using this opportunity map feature, this is something I mentioned earlier, will do an analysis and tell me what are my options for doing this project, looking at from today to the end of this particular model, which is the year 2020. And it can do it based off of the named resources being requested or based off of generics to say that I need generically mechanical design people, and then maybe I can't get Greg, but I can get, let's say, Mike, who's a mechanical engineer. Well, this would do a swap for me. And this analysis can be run by month or by week. And if I wanted to, I could even draw this back, and it looks like it may not need it, but I can get additional scenarios. There's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 by saying I'm willing to have or accept using less available headcount and maybe substituting, in this case, a third of the allocation to contractors or just assuming that I'll be able to get the support that I need. Once I drill into these, it'll tell me, well, why? Well, in this case, it looks like the resource I'm looking for is fully available. If we had breached this resource's capacity, we would see that in red. And ultimately, if you like the scenario, you just hit apply, and it's going to change the project to occur at this particular time frame. Now, the power of this feature is that it lets me see for projects that are in flight, as well as proposals, where can they be delivered. So not so much which should I do, but more importantly, if approved, where can I do it? Or where can I move something to, given the demands that I have on my resources? a really critical feature for decision making inside of these complex resource data. And then we also offer the ability to play with your headcount. So for example, maybe this lab tech resource, if you want to simulate headcount reductions, decrease, or headcount increases by number or by percent, this can be done directly in the model. So perhaps I wanted to see, what happens if we bring on, starting in, at the end of 2017, let's say, we're going to hire on 5 new lab techs. What's the effect? Well, I can update this preview to see what impact this is going to have on my headcount. And you'll see in this case the number is really not driving much since this resource doesn't have much in this particular model allocated. But it creates, in this case, 5 new resources that can then be used to offset any over allocations, which, when we build these models with more detail will become relevant. But the point being, I can simulate headcount increase or simulate headcount decrease. So if I literally wanted to reduce headcount to say, we're going to reduce named people, or we're just going to say, we think a headcount reduction of 20% is on the way for this particular role or skill, I can see the net effect on my resources, and if I wish to, then apply it into my model. Okay, and the list goes on and on. So there's a very wide array of functions built into the modeling environment. We only have a few minutes left today's session. I'm sure we'll have many, many more we can discuss in greater detail. But I guess at this point what I'll do is hand it back, Greg, to you maybe to close things out, and or if there's any questions we can touch on.
Yeah, why don't we check first to see if there are any questions anybody has on any of this so far.
I do have a couple of questions. First question is because of the scenario planning. If a resource manager only has a limited departments for the scenario analysis, or only confined to those departments that he has access to.
I think we're getting a little feedback. I don't know if maybe you got the laptop going too.
Right.
All right, sorry. Okay, question come again.
Okay, so my question is for the scenario planning. I understand that you can play with the whole pool of data, but what if the resource managers only have access to a few departments? During the scenario planning, can this person get the whole picture of all other departments, or only confined to the departments that this person has access to?
It's going to be depending on how you want to set it up. So a lot of our companies that we work with, they don't really want resource managers to see other resources that they don't have control over. So it just depends on how you want to configure it in the setup.
Mm-hmm. So how about the resource utilization? Because sometimes you may have one resource who has been deployed in multiple departments, and some of the departments doesn't belong to a particular resource managers. So when these resource managers going to look at the capacity or demand for this resource, can he see the overall, even if he doesn't have access to the other department?
Yes. He will definitely see the overall capacity of that resource. Again, it's all based on how he creates that model.
Okay. Because the concern is if he doesn't have the access to that department, and yet that resource has been assigned a certain percentage to that department, then he doesn't get an overall picture.
Exactly. And he's the one that's got to know, what are my people allocated? Because again, it depends on your process, right? I don't know whether people come and request in some cases, customers will request resources from a resource manager and they'll assign them. In other cases, some of the companies we work with, people just will say, I need this resource. And then when they get together and they look at the overall model, they can see where the overallocation is occurring. And then that's where they do the negotiation. So we'll support both of those processes.
Okay. And the other question is, are we able to see who has made the change to the resource, I mean updated in who are the ones, the historical log?
So we definitely are going to see, for example, the answer is yes. So there is, like even when Sean pulls up the history list here, it will actually show who did make that last change by name. And so, and then you also, that user can put notes in it. So if you notice, he's just showing up as administrator here. But if someone did a resource replace, that would show up in the history log.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, a few more questions here. So just now, I think you demonstrated the test model to simulate how we're gonna put up the demand for example, for this case, it's 3 years or 5 years. So in the midst of doing this, if I want to create another program, do I need to go back to the home page and then click on the program management, then create there, or I can do it here, just add in another new line?
Yes, you would go back to that home page to add it. That is correct. That is an enhancement. We've had a few people ask us here. Now, depending on whether that's already been created or not, you could just go back, hit the back arrow, Sean, and then just go into the edit model. So if you've already created that, you could just go here and say, hey, I want to now include that one in the model. So it just depends on whether it's already been included or not.
So the one that I created for the test model purpose is not visible by everybody, right? It's only visible by myself.
That's correct, and that's where the settings up in that upper right, whether it's private, shared, or shared with data.
No, I'm referring to when I created specific projects.
Yeah, so in the security model, when we set it up, you have the ability to decide who has access to that project.
Okay. Okay, it can be just myself, individual, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But can the admin can view everything, even though the security has been set by the
Yes.
manager?
Yes, admin has full access rights. And you can even set multiple levels of admin, you know, because you could have some super users in the different divisions, right, that they maybe get additional access rights. So, you know, you basically can set up different roles in the system and determine what those roles can do.
Yeah, two more questions. So the other questions I have is typically a resource when it goes towards the end of the program, it starts to ramp down, meaning, for example, instead of 5 headcount, towards the end probably will reduce to 2 or 1. So does the test model show that, or we need to go and click on it, then it will tell you the full profile of the loading?
So, Sean, I'm going to let you take that one.
Yeah, could you repeat the question? It was a little, I didn't quite understand.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that if you go back to the test model that you
Yes.
You demonstrate yourself.
Okay.
So the blue bar, when it ends, is even though I have one resource there, it will still mark the blue bar at the end, right?
Correct. Yeah, the blue bar just represents the make span, the time frame of any allocation.
Okay, so it could be probably at that point of time I only left with one staff or one engineer in that program, but the bar will mark towards the end, right?
Correct.
So when I drag on the add 10%, 20%, like what you just simulated earlier, so how does that translate to the extension?
Yep, so if we're extending, we're taking how the data are currently allocated and smoothing it out. So for example, if we go back to, let's say one of these projects, and let's look at this one here. Hopefully this one has some detail. Yep, so in this case, this one has a huge volume of assigned resources. What we're doing, let's say we double anything, let's say we double the length of the project. It's going to, in effect, smooth each one of these out by doubling its time frame. So we may smooth out 72 to 36 per month if we're doubling the length of the project. Similarly, if we're compressing, it's going to do the same. Now, if you need us to intercept that algorithm and make modifications according to Motorola-specific calculations, that is achievable, but off the shelf, it's very much like toothpaste tube. You know, it's expanding is going to smooth it, contracting is going to compress it, so you have a higher frequency during the months that it's been compressed.
Okay, so yeah, you answered my question. So my last question would be, so if I'm looking at one, let's say a manager, a resource manager to a team of, let's say they have a 10 or 11 resources report to. So when can I do a click on the manager or somehow just show by the resources name and what are the programs that they loaded to in a single table?
Yep, so there are a few ways to see it. One of those, so inside of a model, if we go to this resource screen, and in this case I've set it up with you know, a very large number of resources. We can also insert columns up here, by the way, if you want to see by priority or something. But you know, if I were to change this to say, you know, show me all of the resources that I've included in my model, you know, I can see their projects up top, again, based on how I constructed my model. So if I'm a resource manager looking at, you know, just my 20 resources and I build my model accordingly, I would see just the projects where they're actively engaged.
I mean, kind of the other way around. So the pointer that you have there, assuming these are all the resources names, then on the each and every column, yes, it's still a time frame, but on the cell, it will actually mark which program they are actually assigned to.
So if you want to, like, let's say the second level here that shows the projects that they're related to?
No, meaning your pointer now is showing the resources name.
Yes.
Right? So
and then down below that it's showing the programs they're assigned. So this resource up above is on these 3 programs here.
Right.
But it's not showing to the time frame, right? I mean, if you go,
right. So when I click on these, it's going to snap to, but you could scroll to it. So there's some functions there where you can snap to it to see the time frame or expand these all. Is that what you're looking for? Something like this, or a Gantt view?
Yeah, because this will be very useful for one team. Let's say the resource manager want to juggle around which program they want to move this particular individual to. Yep. So they can just do a quick swap.
Yep. So this view is the one example, but you know, we can have a Gantt relationship or a Gantt display of these. You know, we can expand all in this section. So there are ways that you can manipulate this layout. You know, and again, go from month down to week and day. So yes, you can. We would just have to play with the layouts.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So
hello. Yep. Hello.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have one question. Is there any way to integrate this tool with other project management tools, for example, Microsoft Office or version 1 or Jira?
Yes. So we basically, when I was showing this slide here, we can integrate with any PPM tool or any other internal system like Workday, Jira, Microsoft Project, MPP Import, Primavera, Project Server, PDWare. We've got an API that allows us to pull data from any data source. So we typically have to do a little bit of mapping, but that's the whole power of Tempus. We can pull it in from anything.
Okay, so we need the API to do that, right?
Yes, it's a connector. So I think in our initial proposal, we included a few connectors. You know, if you need some additional connectors, we just have to determine, you know, if it's not in the initial rollout, we can add those later on, either one.
Okay, excellent. Thanks.
You're welcome. So just sort of in wrapping up, what's going to happen is tomorrow I will send each of you basically the same URL that you're seing here, but you'll have your login and your access. So you'll be able to go in and look at the data. You'll be able to add projects, edit the data in here if you want. You'll be able to either use the what if models that Sean's created. I'll have him make sure that he shares those so they're available to you, or you can create your own models. Now, I'll also send you a getting started guide. We know not many people look in the manuals, but just be aware that any issues, questions, just send me an email. I'll send you the slide deck too. We can have and again, I'll answer questions individually as they come up, and we can do a quick WebEx. I did set up another one of these sessions. I can't remember if it was Friday. It might be Friday or Monday. But we can do a more robust one. So you let me know on that. And then also we do have YouTube videos out on our YouTube page. If you want to sort of see some videos of these. And also I'm going to stop the recording here right now of this session